I'm the happiest that I've ever been.
Raise your hand if you've seen the show. Okay. There's nothing you can't do.
That love language of taking care of people, my authentic self, and so authentic.
Which is amazing, amazing. Well, let's see. What are your confessions?
Celebrity culture is full of false facades. So-called celebrities who post images and videos and do interviews on TV to give ordinary people the impression that they're happy and living fulfilling lives, especially when the exact opposite is true. Celebrity culture is full of deceptive buzzwords and platitudes that celebrities regurgitate time and time again in order to come across as loving and inclusive. Another false facade because they do it to glorify themselves and come across as morally superior. And the old disingenuous media are ready to assist celebrities in their self-promotion with simple-minded questions and fake smiles. Meghan Markle and Time are prime examples of the problem. Both of them need false facades in order to stay relevant with their diminishing fan bases, in order to keep the illusion alive. Why do people shun the old media? What makes media and celebrities disingenuous? With this interview as an example, these are the questions this video will look at. I analyze the language of influential people and criminals, and oftentimes it's the same people. If you're excited about language, click the like button and subscribe. Welcome aboard. In media, framing is one of the most salient concepts. Framing means selection and emphasis. As stated by the scholar Robert Entman, it's about selecting certain aspects of a perceived reality and making them more salient, so as to promote a particular problem definition and interpretation, making viewers perceive a given issue in a certain way, even if it means not giving the full picture. The video title says a lot about this interview's framing, why Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, is the happiest she's ever been. A title like this makes it clear that the interview is about promoting the self-proclaimed celebrity, in this case Meghan. How can we deduce that? Because the topic is irrelevant to everyone else, and because Meghan has an interest in making it seem she's happier than ever, considering the backlash she's facing, her book getting negative reviews to put it mildly, her cancelled animated series Pearl, her discontinued podcast Archetypes, and the world's most criticized cooking show, etc. Can we even trust Meghan when she claims she's happy? No, she herself has indicated that smiling is part of the game.
Behind the scenes, there are so many struggles that female founders don't post about, they don't even talk about, when simply showing up feels like a huge feat. And yet we do it. We push through. We keep smiling. We keep going out there. You get on the panel. You do the thing.
Smiling is something she does, irrespective of how she feels. This explains why her smiles seem contrived, and why she's able to go from happy to upset in a split second. The epitome of a false facade.
For us, it's an opportunity to really get to know each other without other people, looking or trying to take photos on their phones and all that kind of stuff. With that comes with the job, comes with the role. But where possible,
yes. And we were able to really get to know each other that way.
The dishonesty is made clear from the very beginning of this interview, in name only.
Meghan!
Hi.
We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I first want to just say congratulations to you on everything that you've done and everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congratulations on what exactly? The cooking show.
We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds. Flour sprinkles.
Or maybe the much criticized documentary.
Snapchat.
Oh gosh, isn't that whole thing? It started like dog ears.
Dog ears.
That's what he saw of me. And then she sent me an email saying, I know you said you're single and a friend of mine asked about you and maybe you'd like to meet him.
And I said, who is it? And she said, it's Prince Has. And I said, who's that?
Congratulations to you on everything.
Jessica's generic word choice saves her from having to come up with examples. We're off to a genuine start. Meghan and Jessica are busy creating false facades. Jessica praises Meghan, and Meghan accepts the praise as if they haven't registered the negative reviews and the 5-year-long backlash like everybody else. Let's put blinders on and hope no one notices. This happens in mainstream media all the time.
So this conversation is about her journey, your journey. And I want to start.
We have 20 minutes?
Yeah, we do.
It's been a journey.
We do. We can go over. We'll just lunch after.
Journey is a buzzword that only honest and authentic people use.
You know, I had to talk about my journey. And the beautiful part about it is like this whole journey, as difficult as it's been, has just brought Will and I closer in such an authentic way, you know?
The journey of creation. No, just be honest in the journey of it. But that in the journey.
There's nothing like repeating an unspecific word like journey to try and give people the impression that your life's more sophisticated than it is. Jessica almost repeats the word again before she finally stops herself. Let's watch as the interview reaches new lows.
Just lunch after. I want to talk about you as a founder, as a CEO, as an innovator, as a creator, as an investor. We have the CEO of Netflix here. I did binge your show with Love, Meghan. There's nothing you can't do, which is amazing. But
at this point in the interview, I had to double-check Jessica's title. But it's true, the person giving this deceptive flattery is the CEO of Time, which explains why people don't have time for Time anymore. Founder, CEO, innovator, creator, all terms that don't apply to Meghan. Such terms are reserved for people who have talent, build something from scratch, and create something that people find valuable. Self-serving rebranding attempts, masked as being about the guests, the food, or whatever, don't qualify as innovation, or even creation. Furthermore, Meghan married into one of the wealthiest families in the world, and got a title out of it, Duchess, which opened the doors to disingenuous platforms like Spotify and Netflix. Thus, she's never had to take any risks, like actual entrepreneurs. But as expected, all of this doesn't stop Meghan from branding herself as an entrepreneur, because to her and Time, it's about facade, not truth, fantasy, not reality.
And at the end of the day, what you're doing is creating legacy as a female founder. You're creating something with lasting impact.
Well, thank you so much for all your... seriously, Meghan,
This dishonest exchange reminds me of another one.
I actually got a really glowing recommendation from Steven Spielberg to Mark Webb, who directed Snow White. That one.
Well, I've been hearing great things about the movie. Disney's Snow White is the name of the film. It comes out in theaters.
In both interviews, the interviewers are praising content that's been heavily criticized, to put it mildly. Yet they act as if the content and their guests are great. Thus, everything from their word choice to their demeanor is fake, which speaks volumes about both the interviewers and interviewees and the entertainment industry as a whole.
with Love, Meghan, there's nothing you can't do, which is amazing. But
Jessica's referring to a show that's currently at 3.2 on IMDb. This means the show is rated lower than these movies.
Now get out of my face. Point is, what are you doing about it? I'm gonna finish my workout. You're going back inside, Bodine. But you back off, Slade. Just back off!
Hey, Steve, how you doing? What's going on, Steve?
Not much, sir. There's a nurse in there giving him an injection.
Let's check it out.
But according to Jessica's logic, or lack thereof, I guess there's nothing the directors of these movies can't do, right?
there's nothing you can't do.
And then Bella Bajaria as well has just been so incredibly supportive. And I think just naturally, I was doing what I've always loved to do. And people couldn't see that more broadly, but what I'd love to do was always make things in my kitchen, do small flower arrangements, make a lot of jam. And when I was sending those as gifts, one day Bella said, "There's a show here."
Yes, and I'm sure Meghan didn't have ulterior motives with sending gifts to the chief content officer at Netflix. Meghan sure doesn't think much of the critical thinking abilities of the people she's trying to persuade about her happiness and brilliance. Meghan always seems to have ulterior motives.
And if you go to someone and you ask for advice, they're much more likely to give you money.
That's a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm taking that one to the bank.
Just go for advice, because otherwise people aren't immediately feeling pressurized.
In other words, go for people's money by pretending that you want their advice. These are the words of someone who isn't interested in people's advice, and it shows.
We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds.
Make things in my kitchen, do small flower arrangements. Yes, let's make an entire show about that, starring one of the most disliked, self-proclaimed celebrities of all time. Great idea, Netflix. The fact that this Bella made the show possible is a sign that she's a chief content officer, like Meghan's a founder. Untalented and unqualified people stick together.
We have the CEO of Netflix here.
And creatively, we worked as partners to really find a way for it to land and for me to be able to share it and just have fun, which is really, I think, the goal in this chapter. For me, certainly.
Meghan talking about a show that's rated lower than The Room, and in such a self-important manner at that, is unintentionally funny, because apparently they didn't find a way for the show to land. And no matter how many times Meghan says creative, there's nothing creative about the show. It's painfully obvious that she's far from being a cook, or even particularly skilled. But at least this interview allows Meghan to name an accomplice, Bella.
And just have fun.
That sounds totally creative. What a great goal for any show or movie. Netflix should never be taken seriously again. It seems fun has become Meghan's go-to word.
And you're in the kitchen playing and making mistakes and having fun together, and I think that's what I'm hoping translates. Honestly, it's felt just so amazing and fun.
A little tip, when you're busier showing how much fun you're supposedly having, as opposed to actually having fun, it's not fun. Imagine a director saying, "We made this movie because we wanted the audience to see how much fun we had filming it." Fun is the lowest common denominator, and by emphasizing it as the alleged goal, Meghan saves herself from having to come up with ideas that are actually creative and innovative, from her perspective, that is.
Well, what I love about the show, raise your hand if you've seen the show. Okay. If you haven't, Ted's gonna be very happy, Meghan's gonna be very happy, you're all gonna be watching the show, it's amazing.
Oh, I'm sure Jessica thinks it's amazing. And when something's amazing, you always have to put pressure on people to watch it. Next, notice how Jessica can barely formulate an intelligible question about Meghan's show, which is strange. I mean, considering how amazing she thinks the show is.
What I love about the show is that you bring in your family, you bring in your friends, you bring in like the team, the crew, you make them part of the show.
That was very important to me.
And so talk to me a little bit about, you care for so many people, and you talk about joy and love. Everything that you do comes with caring for the people that are on your show and around you. You're CEO. There's a lot of glam, but we know there's a lot of grit and grind. How do you care for yourself?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, look, I think...
And the old media wonder why people don't trust them anymore. Nice fake attempt at sensationalism on Jessica's part.
The team, the crew, you make them part of the show.
And yes, making the team part of the show is so original. I mean, it's not like we've seen that 100 times before. Is that the part that's supposed to be amazing? This is something a person would say when they know there's nothing amazing about the content they're praising, but anything to make people believe the false facades, I guess.
That was very important to me.
Important because it's supposed to make her seem at eye level with the audience that's supposed to see her as relatable, down to earth, and similar deceitful cliches.
You care for so many people.
Yes, Meghan would never be intentionally disparaging to anyone in order to protect her image. No, to her, it's all about caring for other people.
Was there a situation where she might have cried or she could have cried?
No, the reverse happened. And I don't say that to be disparaging to anyone because I protected that from ever being out in the world. A few days before the wedding, she was upset about something and it made me cry. And it really hurt my feelings.
She'd never put herself first, and when she finally does complain, her complaints are always totally legit.
No.
Nobody prepares you.
No, I mean, but even down to like the national anthem. No one thought to say, oh, you're American. You're not going to know that. That's me late at night Googling, what's the national, I've got to learn this. I don't want to embarrass them. I need to learn these 30 hymns for church.
It's bad when celebrities are narcissistic. It's worse when interviewers feed celebrities narcissism. Everything Meghan's done since she and her spare left the UK, every single damage control attempt has been about her, protecting her image at all costs.
How do you care
Jessica's
for yourself?
question isn't only dishonest on its own merits, the dishonesty is foreshadowed by her pauses and restarts, indicating the obvious, that there's nothing meaningful about Meghan's show or this interview. Jessica's final nod is the closest a person can come to reading another person's thoughts. I'll give it a try. Yes, I finally found a believable way of feigning interest. What do you think?
How do you care for yourself?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, look, I think part of what's really, really important is that love language of taking care of people also really feeds me. And I think that is in many ways part of my self-care, which can feel confusing for a lot of people. You go, well, how do you show up for all these people and not feel depleted? But a lot of times, if you're doing it in a way where you are giving in a way that is thoughtful and intentional and so authentic, it actually energizes you as opposed to depleting you. So
Love language is Meghan's new, authentic go-to term.
And I told H that when we started dating. He goes, I vow to always date you. And it becomes part of your love language.
I like how she now closes her eyes while saying it to seem sincere, a great addition to her act.
for me, part of what's really, really important is that love language.
Authentic is a classic in terms of go-to terms.
So for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other. It's about being authentic.
What love language and authentic both have in common is that they're performative terms, meaning that the speaker uses them in order to persuade people about her sincerity, failing to realize how insincere and calculated they come across, same as the words thoughtful and intentional.
Giving in a way that is thoughtful and intentional.
With the word intentional, it sounds like Meghan's mask slips, because everything Meghan says and does is indeed intentional, understood in the most self-serving way possible. Meghan's contrived word choice shows how preoccupied she is with image, because she's constantly drawing the conclusions for people. She doesn't leave it up to people to infer that she's authentic, thoughtful, speaks in a love language, whatever that's supposed to mean, nothing of course. No, these are ready-made conclusions. Ironically, this shows just how calculated and thus inauthentic the terms are.
Which can feel confusing for a lot of people. You go, well, how do you show up for all these people and not feel depleted?
There's nothing like masking self-aggrandizement as being self-effacing. Meghan takes Jessica's flattery, no matter how painfully deceptive it is, and runs with it. She actually starts presupposing that including the team, an unoriginal and calculated move in order to seem inclusive and down to earth, shows that she cares so much more about people than the average person. This speaks to personality, and not in a good way.
Which can feel confusing for a lot of people. You go,
who are these people, and how does Jessica's dishonest question equate to a lot of people? Meghan's facial expression and excessive hand gestures, suggesting that she isn't being sincere and is making this up as she goes, further underline the real intention behind this made-up question, self-aggrandizement.
And I said, how are we going to do a cooking show or a crafting show that doesn't feel like a typical stand and stir, which we all remember from back in the days. We stand and look at camera and you're stirring something. I didn't necessarily want to do that.
Yes, let's pretend that Meghan invented a new genre. Never mind, it's been done many times before, and that Meghan obviously didn't find a way to do it, judging from the reviews and ratings. This is like Kirk Cameron explaining the originality of Saving Christmas, one of the most criticized movies ever. So apparently Cameron couldn't save Christmas, but that's a topic for another video. Looking past the surface level branding, what could the real reason for the show's format be? To take the attention away from Meghan's abilities as a cook or lack thereof, to instead focus on pointless conversations in an attempt to rebrand her as happy, considerate, and easygoing.
And that was the crew. And on Suits, we had a crew of over 200 people. So, and on this show, it's a crew of 80 people, which also, when people said, why didn't you do it in your house? It's like, well, my kids are coming home for their nap, and 80 people in the kitchen isn't really the childhood memory I would love for them to have.
The penny drops. Meghan does read negative comments or reviews, and considering how unmotivated this linguistic self-defense is, it's obviously sensitive to her to counter any and all criticism in order to protect her image. Of all the criticisms of the show, this is one of the least substantial she could have mentioned, but we can't have anything ruin the false facade. Even 7 years after she left the show, and 6 years after the show ended, she still talks about Suits, as if that show justifies the status she obviously thinks she has, or was remotely significant in the history of film and television.
Suits is not what I never thought my life would be that awesome. I never thought that I'd have a show that went for this long. That's crazy. I was the girl that auditioned and crawled in through the back seat of my car. It's like every day I'm like, there's a fruit basket in my trailer.
Her engagement interview taught us that she'll defend her perceived status at all costs.
You're getting a new country out of it, a husband obviously, but also giving up your career.
Yes, that's nice. Yes. But I don't see it as giving anything up. I just see it as a change.
It's a new challenge. It's a new
chapter, right? And also keep in mind, I've been working on my show for 7 years. So we were very, very fortunate to be able to have that sort of longevity on a series. And for me, right? And also keep in mind, I don't see it as giving anything up. I left my career, my life. I left everything because I love him, right? Right?
I wonder why she didn't like that interview. It's so puzzling.
In your engagement interview,
orchestrated reality show. Yeah.
But at least Meghan got to mention how big the crew is, which, by the way, exposes Netflix's unqualified leadership, while branding herself as a concerned parent at the same time. Surely that counts as a win, right?
Right.
And the series has already been renewed.
Yes.
I hear your congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's been renewed and filmed, but
it has.
That's okay. That's amazing.
Season 2 is coming.
That's amazing.
Season 2 is.
That's like saying it's amazing if we got Saving Christmas Part 2. There's nothing amazing about repeating mistakes and judging from the overcompensating word choice and surface-level happy facial expressions. It seems that everyone can see the elephant in the room. What's the elephant in the room? That the show is a bad idea and will continue to be criticized, and rightfully so, which exposes the attempts at selling the show as amazing, as fake. Thus, everything about this interview is fake.
And your third platform, which I love, is your podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder. And you've had some of the most incredible women on your show. You're really supporting women, and I love that. We need more of that. What are your confessions?
Is there anything Meghan does that Jessica doesn't love or think is amazing or incredible? This word choice, coupled with the deliberate lack of specificity, is indicative of disingenuous flattery as opposed to sincere praise. How exactly is Meghan supporting women? by telling women what they can watch and share online in what's really a self-serving attempt to prevent them from criticizing her.
There are a lot of women that are at the highest level, executive level, who are great champions of women, who are great philanthropists, and they are working in these spaces, and yet they're allowing this kind of behavior to run rampant. And at a certain point, they have got to put the do's behind the says and really make some changes on a systemic level. The systemic change has to happen at the same time as the cultural change is happening, because if you're reading something terrible about a woman, why are you sharing it with your friends?
Which part of this alleged support do we need more of specifically? Meghan getting paid to advertise for a company under the guise of empowering women.
When Dove reached out to me, it was so, as I was saying to you, it's just so easy for me to jump on board with this, because their whole campaign right now for self-esteem is inspiring confidence in young women. And it feels organic and right.
It's no wonder Jessica speaks in such generic terms, because it's when you start being specific that the cracks in the facade start to appear. The type of support Meghan's selling is as self-serving as it gets.
What are your confessions?
Well,
as a female founder.
There are quite a lot of them on the episodes, I will say. So, Confessions of a Female Founder felt as though it was the perfect complement for what I was building at this point in my life.
Actually, the confessions are as bland and self-absorbed as one could imagine. I mean, listen to this.
To not feel rattled when you've stepped out of the light, so to speak. But as you step out of the light, you're actually stepping into your own light in a different way and creating space for someone else to be in the light, which is probably the larger purpose of all of us being here.
That's so beautiful. So true.
What an inspiring conversation about light. That's so beautiful and so true.
What is the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse.
If you want more authentic confessions, check these videos. Links are in the description box below.
As though it was the perfect complement for what I was building at this point in my life.
Meghan knows how to talk like an entrepreneur, or so she thinks, but she has nothing to show for it. How can pointless interactions, not to mention all the other failed creations, be about building anything?
And that includes all of the pivots and twists and turns and redirections that happen, as any entrepreneur will tell you.
Someone who's this concerned with convincing people she's an entrepreneur most often knows she's not.
I thought, how interesting is it to be able to listen to the conversations of someone building a business?
If I just close my eyes hard enough, people will think I'm being sincere.
But I needed to see it and feel it. I needed my hands in it, which I think is part of, for me, my authentic self is really being involved in the creative and the granular.
Authentic self. I think I've heard this before.
We came from the same upbringing where it was difficult to be our authentic selves. And now we're living our best, most authentic lives.
Yet another deceptive term that's included in the handbook of platitudes that all so-called and self-proclaimed celebrities appear to read from. There's nothing authentic about Meghan or her projects, which is why she constantly uses that word. People who are actually authentic wouldn't dream of saying that they are. They'd be too busy just being it. Meghan's constantly trying to guide people's perception of her, which is why the terms she uses sound pretentious and contrived.
And a lot of those are revealed throughout the 8 episodes of the series with Limonada, which is a female-founded podcast production company that I'm working with. And they're fantastic.
Meghan thinks they're fantastic because they've bought into her pompous terms and self-aggrandizement and don't ask questions, which tells me they're the opposite of fantastic.
But I think confession for you today that I could very comfortably say is I'm the happiest that I've ever been.
That's some confession. That must have taken a lot of courage to say, comfortably. And when people are actually happy, they totally have a need to tell you they are. This doesn't sound like damage control or a disingenuous response to her many critics at all. And next, more damage control and responses to her critics. Brace yourself.
And that part, to have a partner and a husband who is just so supportive, and to have healthy kids that are so joyful in the freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them, of all the things that have happened in my life, I never would have imagined getting here at this point I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
Well, that's amazing.
Of course, it's amazing. I mean, what's not amazing about Meghan's completely reliable response? Meghan has a habit of calling her partner supportive or even sweet.
You know, I'm very lucky. I am married to the funniest, sweetest, most charming. I mean, he's all the things that you're describing. Also, I have a partner who is so supportive of me.
Supportive and sweet come across as euphemisms for compliant and malleable, same as the words nice and kind.
I didn't know much about him, and so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice? Because if he wasn't kind, it didn't seem like it would make sense, and so we went and had a...
Coming from Meghan, these are hardly compliments. I wonder what H really thinks about being called sweet.
Freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them.
Not only is Meghan trying to get people to think of her as an entrepreneur, but also as a great parent. The self-praise is always present in Meghan's formulations, in this case, that we create for them.
I never would have imagined getting here at this point I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
This is a ready-made conclusion, one that Meghan's rehearsed ever since leaving the UK. However, looking at her many career failures and the extreme backlash, the conclusion's unreliable at best and deceptive at worst.
And I really do.
This type of overly convincing language is typical of people who aren't as happy and joyful as they brand themselves as. And she mentions this as a confession, even though it's not a confession at all, which goes to show how important image protection is to her. Not that there's any image left to protect, but let's not let a detail like that ruin the false facade. What do you think about this inspiring interview? Let your voice be heard in the comments. I hope you found the journey freeing and empowering. What's my confession, you ask? That I'll keep being my authentic self. Until next time.
Congratulations to you on everything that you've done and everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
When things don't go as planned, when simply showing up feels like a huge feat. And yet we do it. We push through. We keep smiling. We keep going out there.